What is up, everyone, and welcome to the debut episode of the Somewhat Sports podcast. My name is Chris. Across from me on the internet spectrum is my co-host, Jurgen. Jurgen, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good, Chris. I am extremely excited for this, our debut episode.
Yep. I mean, look, there's a lot of shit coming out right now in terms of sports news, particularly the NBA. But to give you guys a rundown, we'll basically be uploading an episode weekly. We'll be tackling multiple sports, not just the NBA, but this week is predominantly NBA news, so it's going to be an NBA dominated episode. We'll be tackling football, baseball, anything that's kind of relevant, to be honest. Yeah, but this week we're pretty star studded in terms of news.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited. I'm excited. We've been getting some Shams and Woj updates these last few days, man.
Massive bombs. But not only that, but we got the draft in a week, and I'm pretty much excited about that. I know you are. We've been actually kind of analyzing the prospects for the last 8 months, and this has been pushed back way too much, to be honest, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, we for anyone that has read on your blog that you have, Chris, we actually a good while back we did a draft prospect or essentially a draft lottery prediction from what the original lottery order was before
Mm-hmm.
everything happened down in Orlando. So if anyone has that link, if anyone reads your stuff or wants to like see what our original draft predictions were, you could go back and read those because I'm willing to bet some of our choices have definitely switched considering everything that's happened.
No, we'll put the link to that in the description below. Yeah, but for today, we'll be doing our draft predictions, 1 through 14. We want to do like the lottery, and then we're going to discuss the trade rumors going on right now. And going forward, I think we'll have more people joining us, but to start off, it's going to be me and Jurgen. And I think we're the core two with the 1-2 punch going forward, But until we find other members, this is what it's gonna be, and this is gonna be the format. So, Jurgen, I'm ready. You ready?
Oh, I am ready to go, my man. My notes are right up here.
All right. So let's start off with NBA draft predictions. First pick, Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I have an idea of what the Timberwolves should do, and what they should do is something they probably won't do because there's been reports going on, and the more I read into it, the more I'm convinced that they're going to take LaMelo Ball number one. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm going to go with what I'm reading. I think they take LaMelo Ball with the first pick, to be honest. I do think it should be Anthony Edwards. I don't think LaMelo Ball fits with them, especially with the fit next to D'Angelo. I don't know. It's weird to me because I think Anthony Edwards is like that third scorer, to be honest. And I know LaMelo has that, potential, but Edwards is a solidified scorer. LaMelo's a very ball-dominant player, and so is D'Lo. I know D'Lo could kind of play the two guard, but he looks more comfortable when he's on ball. I don't know if you saw that clip of the podcast he was on with JJ Redick, D'Angelo Russell. It just did not sound convincing to me that he wanted to play with LaMelo Ball, to be honest. It would cause a little bit of an internal rift, That's just me. But I don't know. I guess it's a box office draw. I don't necessarily know what the situation will be like with the fans. I heard that there's not going to be fans next season. But look, I think Edwards would have been solid because he could have played the two guard. D'Angelo plays the one, and then Karl-Anthony Towns plays the five, and then you can just surround them with shooters. But for the podcast episode's sake, I'm going to go LaMelo Ball for first pick with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Chris, you are not going to hear a lot of disagreement with me on this one. I agree. I have LaMelo Ball going first overall to the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I think there is a chance. I know recently, like you said, D'Angelo going on the podcast with JJ Redick, you get some vibes that maybe he's unsure of how it'll go. But I think it can work to this extent. I think LaMelo, compared to Anthony Edwards, I think he will flourish as the main facilitator in Minnesota. While D'Angelo can definitely pass, and Cat is one of the modern era big men who the offense can run through him, I think the both of them having that pure playmaker alongside them is the perfect thing to go. Again, I agree Anthony Edwards is amazing. I want to emphasize this on the front end right now because I feel like some people might be a little bit confused and angry with where I have Anthony Edwards slotted in my mock draft.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
I
Don't
won't, I
spoil it.
won't, but I'm just
All
saying,
right.
I want to say on the front end, I think Anthony Edwards is great. Do not let what I'm going to say later on affect that. I think he's great, but I do think LaMelo can fit with these two. And I think where the real potential is here is LaMelo being the 6'7", combo guard, point forward, whatever you want to eventually make him as. The defensive potential that he has, I think he has a very unique thing coming into this draft that most guys don't. He has an older brother, two of course, but one specifically, Lonzo Ball. He's seen what Lonzo has gone through his first few years in the league. He's seen the struggles. He's seen how Lonzo has had some injuries, how he has to be ready game by game. LaMelo has seen how a pro does it. And I think he's going to take that into effect. He's going to come in more prepared for his rookie season, I think, than most in terms of off the court. And I think it'll take a little bit of time to transition on the court, like for all rookies. But I think LaMelo has a very unique opportunity here. You put him in Minnesota. I can understand some of the ball stuff because I think, of course, there is one basketball. At times there will be struggles with touches. But I actually do think LaMelo can be a pretty good fit with D'Lo and Cat down in Minnesota.
Look, I hear what you're saying. My counter argument would be LaMelo has. I mean, Lonzo's been in the league what 3 years now.
Yeah.
So LaMelo's had a good chunk of time to kind of analyze what Lonzo's done. The motor concerns me. His motor concerns me, to be honest. I don't look. I like LaMelo. If, like, for example, like if the Knicks had the first pick, I would go with LaMelo Ball. And spoiler to any viewer that's listening right now, I'm a Knicks fan, so that's kind of biased. But I'm just saying, like, his like care factor is pretty low to me. I think. Look, the defensive potential you talked about it. I don't see it with him, D'Lo, and Cat. And Cat is like historically bad on defense, to be honest. I do think Lamelo's length could make him a serviceable defender, but I don't know. I just don't see it, bro. Like the defensive ability concerns me with this team if they draft Lamelo. And granted, look, I think if they picked Edwards, it would still be like a defensive liability throughout. But I'm just thinking, just fit wise.
Right.
I just don't see it. But again, like, I don't know. I've been, like, last year, I didn't see a lot of fit picks in terms of just, like, best player available versus fit. I just saw a lot of people go best player available.
Right.
So, I just,
That's
I
the
just
age-old
think,
question. That is the age-old
yeah,
question.
always. And I just think Minnesota's just, they're kind of banking off the ceiling of LaMelo, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just, if the reports are true that they want to win now, I just think you go Edwards, to be honest. And I do think they have a kind of they're in a tight window, to be honest, because we don't know what's gonna happen with Devin Booker in the future. I just think you go Anthony Edwards, to be honest, because just in case you don't get Booker, because I know that's gonna be their main target. I think Edwards is a suitable alternative to Devin Booker. But that's me. You got any final thoughts on the Wolves pick?
Honestly, final thoughts. If I was Minnesota management, I would honestly go with what you're saying. I would try to go for a trade with this number one overall pick. I think Devin Booker, D'Lo, and Cat, they obviously, all three of them are very close friends. They all do want to play with one another at some point in their careers. And I have been a very big proponent ever since Minnesota acquired D'Lo that Devin Booker is eventually on the way at some point. I think if the Suns had performed terribly in the bubble and if they hadn't been as close to the play-in game as they
He would have been
were,
gone.
I think
Yeah.
yep, I think we would have already heard about the trade almost being official at this point. So I think that little run by the team saved Booker there for now. But I
Yep.
wouldn't be shocked if up until the final hours come next week, I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota is still trying to talk to Phoenix about him right now because I think they want to make that trio happen.
Yeah, I could see it. Moving on to the Warriors, second pick. There's been reports that they have been, interested in a lot of people, and it goes from like the top three to the Devin Vassell's of the draft and
Yeah.
the Denny Avdias. I think it's all smoke. They're going James Wiseman. He's exactly what they need. I think him next to Draymond is going to be hugely beneficial to him. It's all smoke to me. They're gonna take James Wiseman, and then look. And if there's a trade down the line, that's fine. But I don't I don't understand the gripe with some people, and they're just like, well, they want to win now. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that, but I don't understand how James Wiseman could be detrimental to that win now factor. I mean,
Well,
like,
not only that, Chris, like when you talk about whoever they pick and if they'll help the win now thing, they have a two-time MVP, and another top 6, top 7 shooter of all time, wherever you may want to rank Clay. Like, those guys are coming back from injury. It's not like they retired. Like,
They're gonna be
they're going to be
fine.
back. They're going to be back. I don't understand why people keep forgetting about this team.
But also, like, I don't understand. Like, the Warriors' biggest problem is, of course, rim protection. I mean, quote unquote problem. I mean, I guess I'll call it a gap. I
Right.
think you slot in Wiseman there, and you put him around the Warriors' developmental staff. I think they're going to be a force to reckon with. To be honest, I think they'll be fine. But in regards to this pick, you go Wiseman, stop the smoke. You get everything you need, and just go forward. Look, if there's a Giannis trade down the middle, that's fine. It's like just pick Wiseman. Enough of the bullshit.
No, yeah, I agree. This is my pick as well. What good organizations do is they throw out a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to their potential
For
draft
trading, yeah.
selections and with trading as well. I think, and even if hypothetically, if they pick Wiseman and deal him, like I think that front office has earned the benefit of the doubt as to what they're doing there.
Yeah.
But I think Wiseman is ultimately going to be the selection here because if they do end up keeping him, like you said, the gap that team has is with rim protection, and you bring in one of the top two, like whether you want to slot him as number one or number two in terms of shot blockers, he is
Uh,
that in from the prospects of this draft. And if we're going by, even though it was literally a handful of games at Memphis, you saw very early the shot blocking ability that he has. So he fits well on this team. Not everyone in that starting lineup needs to be a shooter. And he's going to be that guy that, he's going to get the cleanup buckets when Steph or Clay inevitably
mhm.
miss threes. He's just going to get an offensive rebound, kick it back out, or put it back up. Like he's going to do very well in Golden State, I think. And just the experience that he's going to gain, everything he's going to learn from watching, champions and watching a two-time MVP and Steph. You want to talk about the best possible situation for a prospect?
Oof.
That would be James Wiseman if he goes to Golden State.
For him, being surrounded by these top tier veterans, you can't ask for anything more, and you can't ask for anything better, to be honest. Especially for someone that's in his position. But
100%.
yeah, consensus pick James Wiseman. Moving on to Charlotte Hornets. Look, I know that the Hornets like Wiseman. I don't know if a trade's going to be happening. I would like for them to take Okongwu. I know it's not going to happen because Anthony Edwards is on the board, and you do not pass on Anthony Edwards. So I have them going to Anthony Edwards here.
Nice, nice.
I don't know how he'd fit because Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier are there, but
Right.
this is the best player available scenario that we're talking about.
Very true, very true, very true. And like I said before, I love Anthony Edwards. But but
Talk
I
to me.
am very, very high on Onyeka Okongwu,
Me
and I
too.
think the Charlotte Hornets. I would not personally criticize them if they were to pick him here third overall, and that's what I'm going to go with. And here's why. And it has nothing to do with anything I have against Edwards. Like I said on the front end, I believe Edwards is extremely talented, but I look at Okongwu, and of all like the draft analysis of people that I was reading about him from the different sites and everything, there is one particular sentence that like just stuck out to me the most. And that was I forget which site. Maybe it was CBS. It was someone that said that he has the potential to be the Bam Adebayo of this draft. And
Yep.
I mean, Chris, you showed yourself before. I'll show myself now. I'm a Miami Heat fan, and
Yeah.
of course, I am a massive Bam Adebayo fan. And if you're telling me that with this pick right here, Charlotte can get a guy who will be a consistent double double, a very versatile defensive big man, which he has already shown to be, Okongwu, and a guy who could potentially develop a little bit of that, half court in offense. The offense can kind of go through him in terms of he'll go to the high post, let everyone move around. Like, you're telling me that's what you're going to get here? That is a very, very valuable player to get. It is very difficult for me to pass up on Anthony Edwards, but the upside of Okongwu is just absurd. And again, I think we could go either way with these picks. But I'm just personally going with Okongwu here because man, oh man, that just his upside, the defensive talent he's shown, how well he did in college as a freshman, all signs point to he's going top 5, top 6 to me. And I even in this case top 3.
Ooh, all right. I think Okongwu is the perfect fit for Charlotte if they don't get Wiseman, to be honest, because I think Charlotte's pretty much set on the guard play, and they also have decent wings. I love PJ Washington, and I think Miles Bridges is solid as well, but they need a big man. Cody Zeller is not going to cut it, So I would love for them to take Okongwu. It would be the first pick where you're just like, whoa, it's the kind of surprise pick. Even though it's the one pick that makes sense for them, but you're passing on the projected number one pick to a lot of people. So look, I wouldn't mind it, but I just think they go Edwards here. It's just like it's very tough, especially for a team like a market like Charlotte, North Carolina, to pass up on what could have been the number one pick. So I have to go with Edwards here. But I like the Okongwu pick. I just don't see it
No,
happening.
yeah, and again, I think either way you can go with these two guys. Like I said, I just personally I think Okongwu has the potential to be a very, very talented prospect. And I also think like Charlotte down the line, and let's be real here, like Charlotte is still going to struggle these next couple of years.
Yep.
So I think they'll have the potential in future drafts to get that next guy, whether it's a point guard or even a pure small forward, to really lead them. And I think this is like a more foundational piece. Again, I love Edwards. I need to keep stressing that because I'm going to be yelled at. I'm going to be yelled at soon. But no, I don't blame you. Like it on draft night, either pick they make. I think it's a W for Charlotte. Just as long as they don't take like an overreach here, like as long as they don't make that kind of mistake, like don't take the Adam Morrison of this class, whoever that may be.
Jesus Lord. Bulls. I think they go Danny of Dia here, bro. I think they're like Kobe White, Zach Levine. They have Markkinen, Wendell Carter Jr. They have a nice young core going on, but I also think they're on like borderline playoff mode. And I think Denny Avdia is one of the best prospects in this draft. You could play him at point forward, to be honest, to take a little pressure off Kobe White, who's I think not a pure point guard. But I love Avdia for this team. I think he fits in well. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this other than I think this is the most solidified pick. Like I was really confident with this pick, writing this down for the Bulls. I really like this is the one pick that I think is for sure going to happen.
I agree. I agree. And, I'll reference it again to that written piece we had a couple months back. This was the most consensus
Yep.
pick that the both of us had. Denny to Chicago just makes so much sense. His ability, like you said, to play the point forward, just his natural playmaking and court vision, it'll be him, Zach Levine, and Kobe White. They can take turns just bringing the ball down the floor. And I think with him, you look at him improving as a shooter. I don't think it's fair for people
Yo.
to take a few of his stats because the thing is, in Europe, it's not just one league for the entire season. You'll play in little tournaments. You'll play in the Euro Cup. You'll play in this. Like so, you need to look at specifically how he's doing on a broad spectrum. You need to look at every single game, and he's improving as a shooter. He's not fully there yet, but he has shown great strides there. Plus, he has a good shot release. He's one of those guys that you read about, like his shot release is fine. He doesn't have to necessarily change too much about it. I read that he was working on his mechanics. I 100% agree. I think this is the most down packed pick that out of all the draft predictions, I think this is the most consensus I've seen.
Yeah, and I also think like the whole shot debate with him. I don't understand it as much. I understand he shot like a subpar percentage to start off, but after the suspension of the season, they got back to their tournament, and then he improved exponentially in terms of percentage wise. But his form is gorgeous to me, dude. I think the form is there, and I'm a big believer in like mechanics and form. Like if you're not making them from a consistent basis, but the form is there, I have more faith than most people, to be honest. People have different ideologies about that, but I think if you have adequate form, the potential to be a really good shooter is always going to be there. And he's also young,
Oh
man.
yeah,
It's just I love the fit with the Bulls, to be honest, and I think he's gonna like be a really key addition to
I
them.
agree, and I think to your point about the form, I definitely agree. If you have the form and you have the mechanics down, I fully believe that if you just keep working at it, you'll get it. Maybe a tweak here, a tweak there. Maybe for some guys, like is it where he's releasing? Where is the ball when he starts taking it up? Like those little things are the only thing that some guys need to fix. But you have a guy like him, like it's these little tweaks that he needs to make to his form that'll turn him from where he's at now, which is in the low 30s, to the high 30s, low 40s in terms of 3 point percentage. I agree. Again, this is To me, this is the most consensus draft pick I've ever seen in my lifetime, in any draft.
Jesus
I'm
Lord.
I'm not even joking. This is the most consensus draft pick in any sport I've seen since Connor McDavid in the NHL a few years back. Like the every
Yo, that's a massive take, bro.
it not because of the caliber of player. It's just all these draft sites. I see Denny going to the Bulls. I'm just like, I'm not even seeing people venture. It's like, okay, maybe they pick Obi Toppin, maybe they pick someone else. I always see Denny. This kind of consensus. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be the Connor McDavid of the NBA. In no way. I'm not putting that expectation. But in terms of all of us agreeing, like this is the most camaraderie I've seen in I don't know how long.
Right.
So it's a beautiful thing to see. It really is, especially in society sometimes nowadays. Like the fact we're all in agreement with this, it's beautiful, Chris.
I can't believe Denny is single-handedly bringing civilization together, bro.
Honestly, I mean, how would you not want that on your team? He's bringing society together.
And he looks like a good kid, to be honest. Like he looks like a coachable kid,
Oh,
you
oh
know.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a massive
Those
plus.
European kids that come out of, like the club systems, like oh
They're
my
all
god,
yeah, they're always mature. You don't like character. You don't have to worry about character for most of those people. Number 5, Cleveland.
this pick.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So I know what this pick is. It's my least favorite prospect of the draft this year. Obi Toppin. The age and the defense are heavily concerning to me. I understand he's an offensive machine, but I also do think he's what the Cavs need. And I know a lot of people are like thinking Obi Toppin is like the front runner for Rookie of the Year. I've seen this, throughout a lot of talk shows that he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year. Like he's going to come in and just make an impact right away. Look, Cavs are going to eventually need to find Kevin Love's replacement. I don't know when they'll trade Kevin Love. They're going to need to start assembling the front court pretty soon, and I think Obi Toppin would be a solid first step. I think him and Darius Garland could be a little nice
right.
combo. I think Colin Sexton is a great scorer, but I think Darius Garland has the most potential of a playmaker, and I feel like there could be a lot of pick and rolls there, a lot of pick and pop,
Nice fast break
because
opportunities.
Obi's. Yep, and Obi Toppin can run the floor, bro, and he's a good shooter too for his size. So I got Obi Toppin with the 5th pick.
I agree. I fully agree on
Yeah,
this one. And is you wanted to be a little bit, pulled back in terms of your issues with him. I will give him.
I
I
hate
will give.
Toppin, bro. I hate him.
I will give him credit. The AP and Wooden Player of the Year. To do that in college, to do that at Dayton, like
He hustled. He did hustle in that.
yeah, he deserves a lot of credit offensively, like you said. I think in terms of offensive package, going to the rim with aggression, attacking the basket, being a real good full court player, and also having some half court offense. Again, his ability to shoot the three. I think his ability to shoot the three is ultimately what puts him so high on the board. I think we can all agree if he did
Yeah.
not have this ability to be a bit of a stretch four, he would be nowhere near the top 5 because a player like that
Yep.
is subjugated to just a high energy player off the bench. But because of that 3-point shooting ability, he has it. I agree with the whole age thing, being 22 years old right out of college. Nowadays, it's not the popular trend. You want usually you want the 18 to 19-year-olds, a 22-year-old. Maybe that means he's a little bit more physically ready for the league, which I think is a real argument for him in terms of going in the top 5. But overall, I think he is fitting what Cleveland needs. Like you said, I think eventually Kevin Love is going to get traded. They need to find that replacement. And I also think, and this is, we go back to some of these past drafts and some guys that a lot of fans know of. I think of, not in terms of skill set, but I think in terms of position, because Toppin is going to play the 4. I think of Rui Hachimura. I think of Aaron Gordon. These guys are better suited at the 4 because they don't have the speed, they don't have the defensive skill set necessarily, or the size to play the 3. And if you put them at the 4, Atlanta did this with Josh Smith. He's going to be more athletic than some of the power forwards. He's going to be faster than some of the power forwards, and that gives you a bit of an advantage on the offensive end. Like I said, Josh Smith was almost an originator of it in the modern NBA. Atlanta always put him at the 4 despite his size, but he was so athletic, so gifted that it worked for them. And I think Toppin at the 4 just makes sense, no matter what team he goes to. But particularly here in Cleveland,
Yeah.
like you said, they need to build up that front court, and Toppin is most likely going to be the pick here.
Yeah. Look, I have my feelings about him. His defense is so atrocious to me, and I know that's the common gripe with him. And rightfully so, dog.
Yeah.
Like if you do your scouting on Obi Toppin, and you'll see why I'm so turned off by the defense. Like, he gets eaten up all the time. But also, he's going to be due for a rookie extension, dog, at 26 years old.
Yeah.
Stop it. I'm not. No further words. That's it. I'm not saying anything else on Toppin. But yeah, him in Cleveland, it makes sense. And plus, it's Cleveland. Whatever. You deserve
Yeah.
Toppin. Any final thoughts on the Cavs pick?
No, I think you put it best. I think if you are a prospect who has a low light real video of your defense, that should throw up some red flags. But like you said, it's Cleveland, and that I'm gonna be interested to see come that rookie extension, like how he will be formed as a player. Because most guys, it's like, okay, they still have room to grow. With him, it's gonna be like, all right, we either have what we have or we still don't know. And if we still don't know, he'll be out of the league by then.
All right, Atlanta Hawks number 6. Now, I forgot to mention at the top of the podcast, there is going to be a lot of trades, but we're just operating under the assumption that everything is just going to go. Like, these are just the picks with no trades right now. We know some shit's bound to happen, and the Hawks have been in a lot of trade talks to move the 6th pick. But just for podcast sake, because we don't know what's going to happen, we're just going to operate under the fact that the Hawks have this pick
We
right now.
also don't want to make this a 4.5 hour podcast with our trade.
That's true. Also, yes. Now, this was the first pick to me where I was like, "Ooh, I don't know where this is gonna go," because Atlanta kind of has everything. You know, they have their star point guard. They have some nice wings in Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, and you also have John Collins and now Clint Capella, and they also have Kevin Huerter. I'm like a big fan of, to be honest.
Right. Same.
So I'm just like, what do the Hawks really need? Look, they need a backup point guard to Trae Young. I think you could. This is where the fit comes in. Not really the fit, but I don't even know what this is. They need something. So I'm gonna go with Tyrese Halliburton for this one.
Ooh.
I felt uneasy doing this, but they need someone to kind of handle the offense when Trae Young, isn't doing it. And also, I think Halliburton takes the pressure off Trae in terms of just like operating that offensive engine for them. So like it takes a little bit of pressure off Trae in terms of just playmaking wise. I think you can play them both at the same time. Halliburton to me is a Swiss Army knife, so he can kind of do a little bit of everything. The mechanics are kind of sus to me, but look, he shot a decent percentage from 3, so I'm not going to downplay him completely. But look, I'm just going to go with Halliburton here. It's a very pick to me. I don't know what else the Hawks kind of need for this. I could see them taking Isaac Okoro, but they have these type of wings, and I know Isaac Okoro is kind of undersized for like a decent wing, but it's a very questionable pick. But I'm going Tyrese Halliburton.
You, my friend, on another podcast, I like to call you the master of the segues, and you just about segued into my selection. I have Isaac Okoro going to the Atlanta Hawks, and here's why. And I agree, they have DeAndre Hunter, they have Cam Reddish, 2 guys who I think are still solid wing defenders. And I still don't think like this 1920 season was such a weird year. Like I think it almost feels like some of these rookies, like they didn't get a real shot. Like with how it ended, it almost feels like they didn't get a real shot to really show how they played, how they developed throughout the year. But my thing with Okoro is I just look at him defensively. I just see that pure lockdown potential defensive piece. Like Hunter and Reddish, I like them on defense, but there's just something about Okoro. When I watch him, man, just I look at him, I see like a dog defensively. Like I see a guy. He's going to be the type where he's going to steal the opponent's inbound pass with 5-7 seconds left and like get it down the floor for like a wide open dunk.
Yep.
Like that is the kind of defensive player he is. Plus, I mean, you look at this past season, a 1.1 defensive win share for Auburn, 2.5 defensive box plus minus. The kid is just known for his defense. And the thing is that, and again, I kind of liken this to the Golden State thing, where not everyone has to be a shooter. Not everyone needs to be an offensive first player on that Atlanta team. I think Okoro being that defensive guy is what they need. I also think that with that, you kind of make a Hunter and a Reddish a little bit more. I don't want to say this about these guys. It has nothing to do with their talent, but you can more easily give them up in a trade.
Yes. Okay.
And heck, even Okoro could be that guy. Maybe they pick him to throw in a trade because they are drafting him for someone else. But I think Okoro is the guy here because I also think offensively, just really quick, the offense isn't going to die with him. He does need to improve as a shooter, but he can pass the ball off. He had a couple plays in college where he had some nice kickouts to the corner, the wing when he drove. Like
Mhm.
I think he is the fit here in terms of Atlanta can give themselves a lot of roster flexibility. And like you said, because of how much they have, I think for a team like them, they need that kind of flexibility here.
No, I feel you. I feel you. Yeah. I mean, Okoro would he changes the team's defensive identity completely, and Atlanta isn't the best defensive team, of course, obviously. I like Hunter's potential as like a defensive specialist, but then again, you're a team that's led by Trae Young, so automatically you're going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you add a core to that, completely shifts the direction. But I don't know. I could see them taking Okoro, but if you take Okoro, do you possibly put him at the 2? Because I think he's too undersized to play the 3. I think he could defend the 3, but at a consistent basis. And if you slide him to the 2, he's not good enough of a shooter to be a 2. So that's where I'm kind of like mixed about it.
Right.
I just think Halliburton might be a quote unquote safer pick. I don't know what that necessarily means, to be honest, but I could see Okoro, but I'm just gonna go with Halliburton this one.
No, yeah, I don't blame it. Halliburton, I like Tyrese Halliburton. Like as I've gone more and looked at the prospects more and more, I'm beginning to really like his game a lot more. I think he's going to do really good at the NBA level. So I don't blame the pick here. I just think like ultimately flexibility is the main reason why I'm going with this because you can play
Yeah.
around with the lineup. And again, like you said, we're not really going to go into detail too much of trades. We have ideas on what we think some of these picks should be. Like I've said about like the Minnesota pick, I think this could be a pick that gets traded. But ultimately, and I think Okoro is like the right kind of guy to put here. In fact, actually, no, I don't want to go too much into fantasy armchair GM stuff. I'm not going to do that. But there are some really interesting possibilities that Atlanta can do here.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Pistons. Now, there has been some pretty heated up reports that they may have promised a certain prospect that they're picking him. Now, Troy Weaver is, I think, GM now.
You're right.
Troy Weaver has a history of like kind of having a liking to athletic type of wing players ish.
Right.
Once I found out that Detroit had the 7th pick, I'm like, okay, they have to go Killian Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go Killian Hayes. But from what I've been reading and Troy Weaver's track record, I think, and based on reports recently, they go Patrick Williams on this one.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not a Pistons fan the slightest. I do not understand this pick because you have Blake Griffin. If you don't, if you're stuck with him, even if you're not stuck with Griffin, if you trade him, you have Sekou, and then of course if you re-sign Christian Wood, like they have a bunch of 4s, and I think Patrick Williams is a 4.
Yeah.
He's a solid 4. So it's just they are stacking up on the stretch 4s, and I'm just like they need to shift their focus and get their primary one. You need to get the guy
Right.
that just sets everything up. Killian Hayes is perfect too. And I think Killian Hayes is arguably the second best point guard in this draft.
Agreed, 100%.
And I think he's going to be there for them. I think it would be a mistake for them to not pick Killian. I think Killian it should be the easiest pick for the Pistons, but because of Troy Weaver's track record and just the way that I think they're going based on what I've read, they go Patrick Williams. I don't understand. I think a lead guard here, especially if Killian Hayes' skill set, it would be a perfect match made in heaven. But Detroit wants to make it complicated for themselves, and I see them taking Patrick Williams on this one.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of borrow a quote from another sport real quick, just to give people like the true, like just to really hammer home your point about all the power forwards. This is said about quarterbacks in football. If you think you have 2 or 3 quarterbacks in your quarterback room, you have no quarterbacks in that quarterback room. If you think you have if you think you can have several young stretch 4s or whatever, and think one of them will be the answer, you probably don't have one. So that's interesting. I haven't really read too much about that. I think it would definitely be a reach here. In terms of me, like I've said, for anyone that will be listening to this that has finally noticed, hey, wait, Jurgen, you haven't picked Anthony Edwards yet?
Holy shit, you haven't!
Guess what, ladies and gentlemen, for the 1 or 2 Detroit Pistons fans that we will have listen to this, I am giving your team in my mock draft, a player that I think fits Detroit. Detroit's a gritty city, Chris. These people are, hardworking, put their head down, and just go straight to work. And they
Blue
need,
collar.
exactly, they need a little bit more light from the darkness that has been Detroit sports these last couple years, especially this past year. And you know what? I'm going to give them a little bit of light. Anthony Edwards to the Detroit Pistons
You're
in
bugging out.
my mock draft. Now, let me say this. Like I've said on the front end, Edwards is so talented, I 100% do not expect him to go here. But as I was going through my mock draft, I kept just putting other guys in spots. And then I was like, wait, I still haven't picked Edwards yet. And I look at Detroit, and it's like, will they get him? Probably not. He's definitely not lasting to the 7th pick. But here's my mindset. I think some of the top guys we spoke about, I think
Yeah.
one of them could potentially fall to this point. And in my mock
I
draft,
could see that.
I know what you're thinking. It's not going to be Edwards. And again, I 100% agree. I don't think he goes here. But if by chance, if everything that we've said happens, if Minnesota goes ball, if Wiseman and Okongwu go 2 and 3, Chicago being dead set on Denny, Cleveland being Cleveland and picking Obi, and Atlanta picking Okaro for whatever eventual reason. If the planets align for Detroit, if if all of that happens, Anthony Edwards falls into their lap. I know how impossible this is, and trust me, I fully understand this. But just imagine if it did. They get the perfect guy. Anthony Edwards is such a physical player. He has no issue driving to the paint. Like he is almost a match, and I think there is no better player in this draft to become the franchise player of Detroit than him. Honestly. Oh no, yeah. Same. And again, like I do, the reason why I have this, I don't have it as how I think about Anthony Edwards. I 100% believe he's going in the top 5, and if not, like you said, probably could have gone to Atlanta, probably where I should have mocked him to. But I just think like every other thing that we've said so far is such a real possibility. And here's my only thing I will say about Edwards that can be somewhat of a detriment to him, and it has nothing to do with his skill set, it has nothing to do with how he looked as a freshman. It's that in this draft, the biggest thing I heard of is that you don't have that bona fide superstar potential player. Even with guys as good as Edwards and LaMelo, and as high as I am on Okongwu, and as perfect of a situation as Wiseman can go to, you don't have that certified superstar. And
Yeah.
from people that I've listened to former like coaches, executives, and general managers, sometimes there is the thought process of if you don't think this guy is going to be the bona fide person, like for whatever you may need, then that is going to affect you likely not picking him. And so I think
Yeah.
that could happen with Edwards. Now again, I like him. I think he's going to go top 4, top 5. This mock was just that mindset coming into play where all of these teams aren't sold and Detroit just gets lucky. I don't think that'll happen come draft day, but we've seen some crazy things happen in some of these drafts. And it's 2020. Like that's how I'm going to cap that choice off. It's 2020. Like Detroit could get lucky. Detroit could get very lucky.
Hey, look, if they get Edwards, man, blessings to you, bro. I mean, I think Edwards is one of the. I mean, he is one of the best prospects of the draft. I'm personally not a fan of him. I do think he's like an. I know I'm gonna catch shit for this, but I think he's like another Andrew Wiggins breed. That he's gonna care about stats, to be honest. But I
Right.
think, for argument's sake, if he does end up in Detroit, they could afford to have that. You know, Detroit's not winning anytime soon. They're still very early in the rebuild. They're like literally at step 0.
Yeah.
So Edwards is the treasure chest. That's a jackpot for
I fully agree with anyone listening to this that's thinking to themselves, this guy is a madman. I
them.
100% am. Um, I don't think he will fall this far, but I just like the idea that it could happen. Like, I know it's super rare, but I wouldn't be shocked. Like, come the fifth pick, come the fourth or fifth pick, if Edwards is still somehow not off the board, I would.
Anything happens. Yeah.
Yeah, anything can happen because we have seen guys fall down like really far in drafts. And I think this is a little more of a possibility than most would expect. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't fully expect this. But again, hey, Detroit, you could get lucky. And here's the thing. And once again, we had one of the greatest and longest written pieces of all time about this. I specifically mentioned for Detroit, the point guard position. You can afford to wait a year because the 2021 draft class is going to be chocked full with top tier caliber point guards. And if Detroit
Yeah.
is a really bad team and they get lucky and get that first pick, you're telling me that
Cade Cunningham.
you're telling me at the end of the 2021 offseason they could have Cade Cunningham and Anthony Edwards as their starting backcourt? That I would be salivating if I was a Pistons fan at that thought. But again, it's very rare. But Detroit, you just got to pray for yourself.
All right, this leads us to my favorite team, the Knicks, who apparently no one knows what they're doing so far. They have interest in a lot of prospects, but I was going through the mock draft and who I have off the board, and you can't. I know there's flirting with Okoro and there's flirting with Vassell, and I could see them taking both.
Right.
I could see them taking either one, but because he's still on the board and because of the dire need at the point guard position, you cannot afford to pass up on Killian Hayes for this one.
Right.
Now, personally, I love Kyra Lewis. I would be very much wrestling with myself between Kyra and Killian. I know I'm going to catch some heat for that because Killian is projected to be, I think, one of the top tier point guards in this draft. But I have a lot of faith in Kyra as well. So I do think the hype with Killian is real. I do think he has a very high ceiling. And I think there's a high possibility he's going to be there for them, you know? And I think Killian, look, great character, phenomenal vision. I actually think it's legit phenomenal vision and not just like those empty passes like Westbrook. I do think Killian has like a floor general's eye. So I think he would make life easier for RJ and Mitchell Robinson especially. He sets everyone up. You already know. He already has a relationship with Frank. I do think he's improved. He's another person that has like a suspect 3-point percentage, but I do think it was better in the German league. I don't remember which league specifically, but he shot like 39% in one of them. You know, I do think he obviously needs improvement on the right hand, but Killian Hayes is the guy to go to. I also heard that he didn't work out for them.
Really?
So and which is very surprising because I do think Hayes is a big possibility that he's on the board. If we take Okoro, say for example Okoro's on the board and we take him over Hayes, and I know I'm right because this is my team, but if we take Okoro over Hayes, I will be very upset because he's a winning player. I get it. He's a Tibbs guy. Definitely. Killian Hayes solves a lot of problems more than Okoro, to be honest. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to be between Hayes, Kyra, Vassell, and Okoro. I think they'll take Hayes. I'm not sure. What do you think?
We honestly, save for a couple of the draft picks, you and me are hitting on a lot of the same picks together. I have Killian Hayes here. I fully agree. I think he's going to be the second best point guard in this draft, only behind LaMelo. I think he is, in terms of IQ and vision and playmaking, again, he is. You could argue him maybe even better than Melo, like some would. I'm not getting into that, but I think it's a legitimate case. I fully agree. I think everything you said, and you talk about the stuff he needs to improve on, a little bit of improving with his right hand and thing. Like, he'll get that when he gets to the NBA. And I think of what you said, I think the ultimate thing should be this, that you need a point guard. While me personally, while I wouldn't have my franchise player in today's era be a point guard, your point guard should be your second or third most important player on a team usually in certain moments. And Killian Hayes' natural playmaking ability, he'll get the ball to RJ, he'll get the ball to Mitchell Robinson. That's what he will be there for, and I think that's the pick that they need to go with. Everything else that he'll need to work on, It'll come with time. Again, like this is just a young kid. He's an offensive dynamo, and the Knicks need that right now. But before you become a good team, you need something that can get you going. And the lobs and athleticism of Mitchell Robinson,
Whew.
the slashing of RJ, and the playmaking of Killian Hayes, that'll give fans to actually want to see something at MSG. And so that should be the pick. I think the thing with Okoro and Vassell as well, I think the thing is that, like you said, they're winning players. I feel bad for these guys sometimes because they are winning players going to teams that had like 22 wins the year before.
Yeah.
Like you said, you mentioned it, Chris. I love Frank Ntilikina actually. If he
Nice.
had gone to a team that was ready and more constructed to win
Oh my
at that
God.
moment, we would be praising him as the defensive two guard that's locking up the perimeter players on other teams. But because it's the Knicks, because of the situation, he was set up for failure, and it's not fair to him. And that's what some of these guys have in their destiny, sadly, Isaac Okoro. Like that's just going to be in the cards for some of them. I think you need Killian Hayes here, and if they don't go with it, I mean, I don't want to be over dramatic, but you can already start just questioning how the Knicks offseason is going to go, because I don't see how you pass up on a kid like this.
Yeah. I mean, look, if they pick Lewis, I wouldn't be mad personally. But if I'm gonna take my fan cap off, he's a 19-year-old, the fastest point guard, the fastest player in the draft, and I also I think there's real interest in Kyra Lewis. They had dinner with him and all that, so I don't think it would be much of a drop off.
Right.
But again, I also think Kyra Lewis isn't that bad of a shooter either, especially on catch and shoot. If it's not Killian, but it's Kyra, okay, fine. Then
Right.
missing off on Killian is justifiable.
Right.
But if you pass up on Killian, for Vassell, I kind of get it because it's a 3-and-D guy. He kind of gives the Knicks what they need in multiple aspects. Shooting, a big one, and of course defense. Whatever, I won't be too sour. But if we pass up on him for Okoro, which we just don't need Okoro right now, I get it. A lot of draft experts love Okoro, and I love him too, to be honest. But he's just not what the Knicks need.
Yeah.
He's just not what he needs. And we can't be doing this thing where we're just well, we gotta bank off him becoming an eventual shooter. That's half the Knicks team. Half the Knicks team needs to do that.
There.
You
Yeah.
know, RJ. So say you put Okoro in the starting lineup. That's 3 core pieces that can't shoot. Mitchell Robinson can't shoot. RJ, I think, is getting there, but he's not a shooter. Then Okoro's a non-shooter. Who's shooting on this team? Who's legit
Right.
shooting? It's gonna be bricks all the time, and I cannot go another year watching the Knicks just brick shots,
Right.
especially from 3. I'll lose my sanity. So whatever. Look, it should be Killian. There's part of me that there's a bad feeling that they're gonna take Okoro over him
Right.
because he's a Tibbs guy. But whatever.
Right. And let me clarify real quick. I would also have no issue if it's Kyra Lewis. I was just more so focusing on if it is Okoro or Vassell. Like the problem would be if it was one of those guys. If they decide to pick Kyra Lewis Jr., I personally I would have preferred Hayes, but I would have had no issue with that, because at the end of the day, you just need a point guard. You just need a point.
Yeah, pretty simple. Yeah, rant done. All right, Wizards. He's not off the board. They need a big man. Onyeka Okongwu. I think if Okongwu,
That's
if
right.
Okongwu goes to the Wizards,
Oh
they
my
hit
God.
the jackpot because
Absolutely.
that's exactly what they need. And I think the Wizards gonna be healthy. I don't know what's gonna happen with John Wall because it is an Achilles injury. But I think if you get Okongwu in that team with Rui Hachimura too, and if they re-sign Davis Bertans, Wizards are gonna be scary. But he's exactly what they need. I love Okongwu. I think he's arguably the best big man. People could gas up Wiseman all they want. I have done it too. But I think Okongwu has the highest ceiling. Man, does he fix any problem that the Wizards have?
If he goes to Washington, if you're a high playoff seed,
Woo!
if you're facing a lineup on the other side of John Wall, Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, and Onyeka Okongwu, that might be one of the great upset playoff series that we see in the NBA, and I don't think that is hyperbole. I think if you are if it was Raptors Wizards in the playoffs next year, I would have to strongly consider the Wizards, because man, that would just be perfect for them. Kind of like how in my mock draft I have the scenario of Edwards falling to Detroit. I think yours is a bit more realistic, because I've seen some people think Okongwu will slide, and I can see it. Again, I'm personally high on him, but if I were to take that hat off for a second, I can see a scenario where he slides, And if he ends up in Washington, you're gonna still have Wall and Beal together. You're gonna have Rui Hachimura again in the mold of he needs to play at the four to have some advantages on
Yeah,
offense and
yeah.
defense. And then Okongwu and Bertans, if they re-sign him, you could just have him be that 3-point shooter off the bench or in a lineup where like he'll put in at the four when Hachimura has to sit. You have a good man. That is a nice lineup. Only because he's already off my draft board at this point, I won't send him there. I have Devin Vassell going to Washington. I just think like with Wall and Beal, I'm assuming Wall is going to be back to where he's had. I've read up on some interviews he's had recently. I'd say I'd watch, but he's usually playing cards in some of those interviews. So if you just read some of the interviews he's had, like he said he's feeling better than he has in years. He was saying that like the last 4 or 5 seasons, he had bone and like tendon issues in his knees. You're telling me this dude made a couple all-star teams when his knees were screwed up? And now he's healthy? Are you kidding me? So I'm a high believer on John Wall and Bradley Beal finally working out because the two of them never had each other at their best. Because when Wall was at his best, Beal was dealing with injuries. And then with what we've seen with Bradley Beal, obviously John Wall's been dealing with injuries. This is finally Washington's chance to get the two of them at their best together. And I think Vassell, a 3-and-D player, shot 41% in his career in college, not just in the season, in his career. And in 60 career collegiate games, that is actually a good enough sample size to where it's like, okay, this kid can shoot. He has some nice defensive aspects to him. He's pretty talented, I think, on both ends of the ball. You look at his per 40 minutes um, last season for defense. Actually, not even last season. His career per 40 minutes in college. 2 steals per game, 1.3 blocks per game. I mean, this is like a piece to a puzzle right
Yeah.
there.
Look, I think I agree with you because if I didn't have a Congo, I would probably think they'd go either Okoro or Vassell. The Wizards were one of the best offensive teams last season. You bring in Okongwu and Bradley Beal and John Wall again. I don't know how John Wall is going to be, and Rui Hachimura. I think that ceiling for that team is scary because they have the potential to be a defensive monster, but they could also score
Yeah,
whenever they want to be honest. And I think John Wall feeding Okongwu would be a scary sight, and I don't think a lot of teams want to see that, to be honest. And
yeah,
I think Okongwu's going to be, he's going to end up being one of the best centers in the East eventually. If Okongwu could drop, then they really don't need much. You can build your bench, but I think this team maybe top four, maybe.
maybe at their peak. I think the thing is they need that first year to kind of work things out.
Yeah.
But man, if Okongwu were to drop to them, like that,
Woo!
I am not even joking. Like to the NBA fans that'll listen to this, if you're a fan of a team in the East that you believe is going to be like a top 3, 4, top 2 seed, you don't like honestly. Washington is going to be competitive. Like Wall and Beal are going to give you fits if Wall is healthy, and then you have Hachimura and Okongwu. Like that is going to be pretty dangerous. That is a very dangerous, scary team that top tier teams would have to watch out for.
Absolutely, absolutely. Moving on. Phoenix Suns, 10th pick. Now, there's rumors, of course, but we're going to push those to the side. Phoenix, I thought initially, I'm just like, oh, they're going to draft a point guard or a stretch four because they could use one. But Patrick Williams is off the board for me. But there's also recent reports they like Kyra Lewis, and Cole Anthony is dropping exponentially. I think they go Kyra Lewis on this one. I think him and Booker would be a phenomenal backcourt.
Right.
I do think Phoenix is on that like kind of run and gun type of play style. They have a bunch of shooters, so you have Kyra Lewis who could also shoot the ball, just kind of put pressure on the opposing defense, and it kind of frees up space for Booker and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Oof! Look, Kyra Lewis is one of my favorite prospects, but him going to Phoenix, man, they get their point guard of the future that they've so desperately needed. I love Rubio, but Rubio doesn't necessarily get you over the top, and neither does Lewis. But I think Lewis is more appropriate for what they want to do. Yeah, they go Kyra Lewis. I think the interest is there, and Kyra Lewis, shout out to him, man. He went from like early mock drafts, 25th pick, to now top 10.
Yeah.
Shout out, man. Shout out.
He deserves a lot of credit, and I would not be shocked if he does get in the top 10 somewhere come the NBA draft. But I'm agreeing on position. I'm disagreeing a little bit on the player. But again, Kyra Lewis, if he goes to the Knicks, if he goes to the Suns, I wouldn't be angry. I wouldn't be confused with either of those picks because I think he is a very talented kid. I think he's one of those guys where his second year in college did him wonders. Like that second year
Yeah.
was needed, not just for him to show off better, but to really increase his draft stock. I have in my mock because again, at this point for me, he's not yet been taken. I got a Tyrese Halliburton going here.
Yep.
I think his 2.7 defensive win shares in college in his career, a 4.1 defensive box plus minus. I think it just fits in that lineup where Booker and Aiden are the 1-2 punch offensively. And I think just his all around stat line in college, like a guy like him coming into the league, all around of a player as he is, he doesn't necessarily do anything on a very elite level, but the fact that his starting base level on several facets of the game is already pretty good, that that means you can help him improve, and that also means you're not waiting for him to like come along and like he'll finally start showing out like 30 games in or 40 games in. Like he could start helping a team like Phoenix, who again coming off that bubble run, they think they could be a playoff team. He could be that guy. And again, a defensive piece next to Booker. He's not an offensive liability in any way. Like that, a Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton backcourt would be very, very intriguing.
The thing is, we're all disagree with you, and I like Halliburton's fit in Phoenix too because he's a legitimate ball handler. However, I think Kyra Lewis, you put him in right away, he'll give you results offensively. I think he has a higher ceiling as a scorer, to be honest, and I think that's what Phoenix needs. So Booker doesn't have to score 30 for them to even have a chance in the game.
Right.
And I know Phoenix is better; they're gonna get better. I just think Kyra Lewis right away produces results for them. You know?
No, yeah, I don't blame it at all. Again, I think some people will be shocked when he ends up going as high as he could, and I don't think they should because the more I've looked at him, he's just one of those guys. The more I've looked at in this draft process, the more I'm really starting to see like, oh, he's a team is going to be very lucky when they get him, and the team that I have him going to, because yes, spoiler, I have him in the lottery. Don't worry. But the team that I have him going to is going to be very happy that they'll be acquiring him. Um,
All right, all right.
Halliburton, I agree. I think Lewis would be right away. I just think the combination of Rubio's playmaking and Halliburton's defense will be a nice little combination from your 2 point guards. I do definitely understand Booker needing that scoring help, but I also think I could expect a DeAndre Ayton like real jump next season. I think
Oh yeah,
very much like John Collins, he got unlucky with the whole suspension thing early in the season. I think that threw him off his groove. And I think he showed out a little bit. He showed that his mid range was a little bit better. He's showing you that he's way more comfortable in the league now. I think he could potentially be that second scorer for this specific upcoming season. And I think if you have that, if you get that 1-2 punch between the two of them, you then need to surround them. And you have a Kelly Oubre there. I think another defensive piece wouldn't be too bad. And again, I think the thing is that first Rubio is going to be the starter as either Halliburton or Lewis get used to the league, and
yeah,
then they eventually supplant Rubio maybe like halfway through the season. But not yet. I don't think Phoenix goes wrong either way.
yeah. You can't. Yeah, I think they whatever choice they make, I'm just like, oh, okay. They got a decent guy. Uh, Spurs, my personal second favorite team to root for. Look, I didn't know who they could go for in this scenario. I had him going here, but then I was thinking about it. Who's more of a Spurs guy? Because the Spurs have an acquired taste. They have an acquired taste. They don't pick just anybody. Now, I think they go either one here, but he's fallen this far, which I don't see happening. I don't know why. I don't know who's going to pick him. But for the mock draft's sake, I think Isaac Okoro to the Spurs.
Oh man, if they
And,
get him, Popovich would
and if
love him.
Isaac Okoro goes to the Spurs,
Popovich would
Jurgen,
love him.
this is the greatest gift that you could ask for from God, especially the Spurs, because look, you talk about losing Kawhi Leonard. It's very hard to replace Kawhi Leonard, but you just got someone from the Kawhi Leonard breed who's more ready, who's more league ready than Kawhi was when he started off. I think Isaac Okoro to the Spurs. Are you insane? First of all,
Lethal.
I don't even want to talk about the defense because that is so scary. Like I could just imagine what the developmental staff would do with Isaac Okoro.
Can you
Now,
just
of
imagine
course,
really quick? Can you just imagine if you were a point guard facing San Antonio, you start on Dejounte Murray, and then a
woo,
switch comes and Okaro comes to guard you? Oh
it's
man,
scary, bro. Look, I like Dejounte Murray a lot. I understand he had a knee injury, but he's still a good defender. So, and I think the Spurs have a decent young core. You know, I think they have a lot of good young players. I think Dejounte Murray. You have Lonnie Walker, who I'm a big fan of. What's it? Derek White, Keldon Johnson as well, and then you add Isaac Okoro. I think they have a decent crop. But just to focus on Isaac Okoro, Okoro on the Spurs, it would be a nightmare for teams. It would be an absolute nightmare. But he's the exact Spurs type of pick. You know, I had either him or Vassell, and I had Vassell at first, but I'm like, no, if Okoro is there and it's the Spurs on the clock, they're picking Okoro. It's just that the defense is too high for them, and the Spurs, although Vassell is a really good defender, Okoro is the best defender, and you know the Spurs love their defenders.
right?
They just love their defenders, and I think Okoro gives them a massive facelift because the Spurs are kind of entering rebuild slash mid tier. So I just think if you have Okoro and you let DeMar DeRozan leave and LaMarcus Aldridge, you give him the reins pretty early on with DeJounte Murray, with another piece maybe if they get a trade. Spurs are right back in it. You can never count out the Spurs. They're just never out of it.
No,
But I
yeah.
just think Okoro just brings them to like another level
Right,
in the
no.
rebuilding process.
If they get that lucky, man, like, and hey, maybe like because we both spoke about like we're gonna like someone's gonna drop in this draft. Like for me, by chance, it was Edwards. For you, Okongwu will go into 9. Like maybe Okoro could drop, and if he drops to San Antonio, like you're talking about, we talked about Wiseman getting lucky with going number 2 to Golden State. Okoro just
Oh
will be
my god.
second behind him because that is the perfect place. So for me, I have Vassell and Okoro already gone in my mock. I have maybe like another guy or two gone that maybe San Antonio would have been interested in. So I kind of struggled a little bit with this selection. And the guy I picked on, he's not necessarily a Spurs pick on the surface, but the reason why I'm sending this guy to San Antonio is because I think San Antonio would develop him better than the remainder of the teams that I have on here. And I also think he could do well with learning from a Greg Popovich. And I have the guy who would have been James Wiseman's second guy at Memphis, and that is Precious Achua. Uh,
Ooh.
it was the American Athletic Conference both player and rookie of the year. He averaged a strong double double in college, and he averaged just under 2 blocks per game regularly. So when you talk about the Spurs liking their defensive players, he brings a little bit of defense right there. He was the guy that helped keep Memphis afloat when Wiseman was forced to leave due to the NCAA. And don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, in future episodes, I will rip the NCAA and all that they are, but not now.
Oh Jesus.
Um, but I just think like he's very physically gifted. I think the Spurs in a lot of their draft prospects that they've had in recent years, they all come with like it. Some would say a certain trait. I think they all come with a different trait that makes them ready initially, like that they bring to the table. I think with Precious, he's already physically gifted inside. He has a 7'2" wingspan. He has a little over 9 foot standing reach. He comes with very good physical gifts and strength, and he actually showed a little bit of a shooting touch in college. Only 32.5%, but again, with San Antonio, with how they run things, I think that would be a nice place for him to go to improve. And he's very aggressive at attacking the rim. I think, and this is a legitimate thing with him. He needs to kind of improve on the feel and fundamentals of the game. He's a very
Yeah.
naturally gifted player. His physical gifts are what set him apart, and he just needs to work on the fundamentals. And this is why I say this would be the perfect team for him specifically. Who else would you want to go to learn about the fundamentals of the game than Greg Popovich? And even though he said that he would not be a full-time assistant coach anymore for them, Tim Duncan still said he will visit the Spurs facility to help in player development. And you're telling me that Precious Achua is going to learn from Tim Duncan about fundamentals? Are you kidding me?
Scary sights.
So I know this may not seem like a Spurs pick, but I think you take into effect he brings something a little bit different than what the Spurs have. Plus, like you said, Aldridge could be gone, and they need a big man there to
Yep.
play the 4.
Desperately.
They need a guy to play the 4 there. He's very different from a lot of the prospects they've brought in recent years, which I think they kind of need. I think he could end up fitting really well for them. And I think, again, the thing is that you want to see some of these guys on the Spurs, like a Derek White, a Murray, a Lonnie Walker, and a Keldon Johnson. Like, you want to see what they can do offensively. This guy's just going to be like, he doesn't need the ball to operate. You could get him on the pick and roll, get him on a nice lob here or there. He's going to clean up the glass. Like, I think this is a guy that fits a little bit better than most would assume on paper with San Antonio.
No, I agree. Look, Aldridge is bound to be gone, so he would be a serviceable replacement, to be honest. So I'm all for it as a secondary Spurs fan. I would love Precious. I think the potential's all there. I think anyone who gets drafted to the Spurs is automatically going to be more ready than most prospects. To be
Yeah.
honest, it's just like a head start, you know.
One,
And I know there's some people out there who are like, oh, the Spurs have kind of lost their touch. I'm like, no. I'm like, stop with the recency bias. It's not like that. Let the Spurs do their thing. They're a little bit in purgatory right now. They'll get back to it. And I think them having an 11th pick, you have to understand that because it's the Spurs, it's kind of like a top tier pick. You know, you always when the Spurs pick 28th, you're just like, oh, steal. You don't even know the player, but you're just like, oh, it's kind of a steal because it's the Spurs. But look, I
exactly.
think Okoro or Precious, either way, is a win-win for them. Yeah, that's all I got. Kings, I have Devin Vassell for this one. I was wrestling between him or RJ Hampton. The Kings are always weird to me because they don't necessarily make picks that make sense.
Really?
Bogdanovich,
I wouldn't know.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, look, they're interested in Kyra Lewis when they have De'Aaron Fox, basically. So that
Sounds
kind of
about right.
says all you need to. Yeah, exactly. So I think Bogdanovich was due for a contract. Buddy Hield, I don't know what's going on with Buddy Hield and them. They just seem to be at odds with each other. So say for example they lose both of them,
Right.
they're gonna need a shooter. So you put in Vassell, easy pick for me too, and it helps De'Aaron Fox. The Kings are always going to be weird to me because it's just the Sacramento Kings. But for argument's sake, I think they go Vassell pretty easily, just for risk mitigation, just in case you
Right.
lose those other shooters. So Vassell easily, and plus you add some defense that they need.
SAT word of the day for our
Ah,
high schoolers that are
ah,
listening. Risk mitigation. I like that,
woo!
Chris. I like that. Uh,
Thank you.
so very similar. I think I actually am going to go out on a limb a little bit, and I think Hield and Bogdanovich will both be gone on that team.
Whoa.
I just I could see Bogdanovich in a sign and trade, and I just think Hield has had it up to here in Sacramento. And in today's era, if a player is going to cause you a problem, you might as well just ship them out and get some kind of return while they're at their best possible value. You don't want it to become ugly where you eventually can't trade a guy and you just have to eat it. I think that'll happen. And of course, obviously, I think Vassell will be a great choice if he was still on the board by then. He's not on mine, so I'm going to go with the next best possible shooter for them, and that is Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt. Uh,
Mm,
arguably the best shooter in the draft class, 41% overall in his career, averaged 6.3 3-pointers attempted per game in his career, 8 in his sophomore season that, we didn't really get to see fully play out because he was down with injury eventually. But in a 14-game stretch, 52% from three. Now, obviously, that percentage is not going to translate to the league itself, but you want to talk about a guy that can just pull up from three in any way, whether it be a pull-up three, an off a screen, off movement three, etc. This is going to be the guy. If you're talking about just needing a shooter next to De'Aaron Fox, then this would be the best possible option left on the board for Sacramento. And again, I agree with you. Sacramento's weird. There's no one specific thing that they need, really.
a big man, but there's no big men left.
Yeah, there no high quality big men left,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so Aaron Nesmith, I think, would just fill what will become a need. Obviously, that needs to play out, but I think it will. And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't got much to say about it. It's the Kings. I don't want to waste my time on the Kings.
that's
But
that's a good summary, honestly.
yeah, so moving on to the Pelicans, it's the exact pick you just made. I got Aaron Nesmith to the Pelicans. Now, Pelicans to me have the best young core, and in terms of rebuilding, I get the Denver Nuggets, of course, but I'm talking about the Nuggets are an upper tier team. I'm talking about like the little middle to lower tier team. I think Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, perfect complementary pieces to each other. What do the Pelicans need? Shooting. They
Right.
need shooting. They're gonna lose Drew Holiday. Let's be honest.
Right.
I think you plug in Aaron Nesmith there. Lonzo Ball will facilitate, find him. The attention will be on Zion. He attracts double teams. You find Aaron Nesmith in the corners or for open threes. Splash season for him. He's exactly what the Pelicans need. But also, I'm just thinking about it now. Nesmith would make them
Right.
so dangerous because it makes life easy for everyone. Lonzo will have so many targets to pass to. Zion and Brandon Ingram will attract so much attention that he will most of the time, or at least some of the time, but best case scenario, most of the time, he'll have open space to shoot that three. And
Yeah.
you put that next to Redick too, who I think is going to stay there because of Stan Van Gundy hiring. JJ Redick and Aaron Nesmith, two snipers. I think it solves the shooting problems.
Right. No, yeah. I agree. If I didn't have him going to Sacramento, he would have been my pick going to New Orleans, honestly. But I have for New Orleans, and you want to talk about Chris. I think you made a very good point in terms of the teams that are rebuilding. The Pelicans have the best combination of prospects there, and why not add another piece there? Because you're right, Drew Holiday is going to most likely be traded this offseason. They're going to get a solid haul back for him.
Yeah,
Lonzo, while I do still think will be a solid NBA player,
he could leave. I
he,
could see him
he
leaving.
could be gone too. So that leaves a little bit of a hole at the point guard spot.
Kyra,
Lewis Jr.
I
going to
see
the
it.
Pelicans in my mock. You talk about a kid, and Chris, you said a lot of the stuff that people already need to know about him, but he improved his three-point shooting and free throw shooting while he was in college, ending his career with 36% from three and 79% from the free throw line. He's aggressive. He's going to attack the rim. He's in terms of like finishing around the rim with finesse. Like, I don't know if I can name anyone better in this draft class that has a more expanded repertoire going to the paint than him. Like, you want to talk about a hop step, a euro step, a nice floater, a little like flick shot, a finger roll. Like, this kid has it all when going to the rim in terms of like just finishing with finesse. He needs to get obviously. I think this is the case with most draft prospects in general. But for Lewis specifically, I think he'll be a solid defensive player, and if he's going to continue going to the rim, he needs to eventually, get some weight on him, bulk up a little
Yeah,
bit, which I don't think will be a problem in New Orleans. But he needs to bulk up a little bit, just so he could take the physical grind of the NBA. And I think the number one thing with him, and like you said, he's the fastest player, I think, in this draft. If not, he's second. I don't know if there's two players faster than him, just in terms of straight line speed. And I think this is a thing that a lot of young, fast point guards have to deal with. Eventually, he's going to have to learn just how to slow down a little bit. He's going to have to learn how to, not play every single possession at 100%. If that sounds like a line you probably heard when you watched a young Russell Westbrook or a young Derrick Rose, that's because it is. Young point guards, sometimes they go a little bit too fast. They try to put the pedal to the metal on every possession, and it'll take time. And I think Stan Van Gundy being there, like you said, I think he's a great veteran coach. I love him as a coach and a personality. If you didn't listen to him on commentary during the NBA bubble, you should go back because he was very insightful. And I think Kyra Lewis Jr. to join that young core in New Orleans, you're talking about dangerous. That's
I- I'm
dangerous.
just I'm just thinking about the fast breaks with him and Zion.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Who wants to be in front of that, bro?
uh,
Because Kyra's so fast. I think he'll just slice the defense and then just alley oop to Zion right there.
Chris,
Like the possibilities are so endless,
you
man. I'm
remember?
so jealous.
I forget which All Star game it was. Do you remember that All Star game when Steph just like laid on the floor and while Giannis was coming at him?
That's exactly up. Yep, it's
That's
that.
if I was the lone defender on a 2-on-1 between Kyra and Zion, I would just lay on the floor like let's be honest, I'm not stopping this.
Dude, I'd be fearful. I'd be fearful. And this is why I'm so jealous of the Pelicans because I think any pick that the Pelicans make, say for example, Vassell's there or Nesmith or Kyra, like you're saying, you plug any of those players into what they have now, this is a perennial playoff team. I do think they can use some like extra veteran presence, but my God, I think they're gonna be You go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that's what free agency will be for. I think Stan Van Gundy is a guy that he likes his
Yeah.
veterans, and I think the Pelicans will use free agency to try to get like a mid-level exception, maybe those like lower contract type of veterans in to like really help supplant the like the team around like Zion and Ingram and at least in my mock Kira Lewis Jr. But yeah, I think that's what free agency is for. I think they'll use free agency for the veteran presence.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. That's all I got for the Pelicans. Celtics last pick for the lottery.
I have a guy that a lot of people have had no idea where to put him because of how his
Can I
freshman year
guess?
turned out. Yep.
Oh, freshman. I was gonna say R.J. Hampton.
Oh, no, no. I considered him. I will say if it wasn't this guy, it would have been RJ because
Okay.
I think a point guard off the bench is what the Celtics need in terms of this specific draft pick.
Yeah.
I have
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
you want to take one more guess cuz I think you'll get it.
Nah, I'm blanking out right now.
Okay. I got Cole Anthony because
Oh.
here's the thing. And again, as a Heat fan, watching the Celtics last year, the reason why we beat Boston, aside from the fact that Daniel Tice cannot hold Bam Adebayo, and aside from the fact that Jimmy Butler is just a cold-blooded killer, we had the better bench. And one of my best friends, who I've spoken to him about maybe coming on the show one time, he's a massive Celtics fan. And
Okay.
the one thing I kept telling him is that come the Eastern Conference Finals, and if they make it to the NBA Finals, that the Celtics were going to struggle with depth because they were only like a 7-man rotation at best in last year's playoffs. And it got them by Philly, it got them by Toronto. If it had gotten them past us, I'm not convinced that they would have beat the Lakers. And they need to start adding some depth. And you're talking about adding a young point guard who can score, which they need some scoring off the bench. He's going to learn under a very good coach in Brad Stevens. He's going to be like the one of the scorers off that unit and on a 4-year rookie deal. That's the key here. When you're about to give Jason Tatum that contract, when you have Kemba and Jaylen Brown on their long-term big boy deals, you need to have these first-round picks to use to get those young, cheap players who you will develop and you know will be reliable. And Cole Anthony is the backup point guard on the Boston Celtics as a scorer on a cheap 4-year deal. Book it.
Yeah. So a couple things here. I agree. The Celtics need some depth. They need a backup point guard. They need some scoring. However, I look at Cole Anthony, and I think the talent's all there. I think the construction of the construction of the North Carolina team was suspect, and he had to do a lot more than what was asked of him. So I don't want to give him too much criticism, but he is a very erratic player.
Right.
He's coming off of meniscus surgery,
Mm-hmm.
but also like I look at in terms of like culture with teams, right? We talk about Miami, we talk about the Spurs, we talk about, and to a lesser extent, the Warriors and the Celtics. The thing with Cole Anthony that I was personally frightened of before he started dropping, I was like, oh man, he might come to the Knicks. I think he has a very, what do you call, outgoing personality, but I could see elements of him having a little bit of an attitude problem. The thing, and I know that's not a big thing right now, right?
Right.
But I do think in the culture of Boston, where it's strict development, not as strict as like the Spurs, but I do think they give a shit about like how they develop players, and they give a shit about character as well. Like I don't Cole Anthony, I don't think he's the type to react well to someone giving him criticism yet.
Right.
And you know what? Maybe that's why Boston's a good fit for him because it could help transform him into that player. But right now, I just don't see him fitting character wise. I
Right.
get it; the skills are needed, but also if you want to get the best out of Cole, he needs to be in a team like the Knicks. I'm not look. I don't want him anywhere near the Knicks, right? But he needs to be on a team where he'll have the ball. Where he needs to be on a team where he'll have the ball predominantly, right? Well, where he'll be a primary scoring option. I don't think he'll be that in Boston. And if he's not that in Boston, how valuable is he? I think regardless, he's like a scorer at heart, so he's gonna score points. Of course. But I think to get the most out of him, I just don't see it with Boston. That's just me.
Right. No, I don't blame you. I think the only thing I'll argue there is with the attitude thing. I'm not going to argue on his behalf. I'm going to just um
I've heard things about Cole and him and
right.
like teammates.
Oh no, I'm not gonna argue like in terms of like was he in a bad situation. What I will say is that like with uh I think he just finished his second or third year. Robert Williams, the third on Boston,
Yeah, yeah.
his rookie year, it wasn't attitude problems, but it was like he wasn't looking like a cultural fit. And then like you fast forward like a year and a half, 2 years later, he's playing a couple meaningful minutes here and there in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it looks like he's straightened out. So I think I definitely understand what you're saying. But I do think Boston could be a place where he can kind of understand and kind of, it'll be ringed into him like, look, you're in the pros now. You got to start acting like a pro.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And you know what? It could work out. I could be completely wrong. My pick is someone that you've mentioned before, Precious Achua. I think the Celtics desperately need a big man presence. Cantor's not going to cut it. I think Precious, the defensive ability, and under the tutelage of Brad Stevens would be perfect for them. Look, you saw it against the Heat. Bam exposed them.
Yep.
Like Bam just like kind of they were food to Bam. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
and so like I'm not saying Precious is going to be the answer to stopping a Bam. I get that, but you need a body there, to kind of at least contain as best as you can.
No, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, like, and I just think Precious again. He's one of those players that I think could benefit from these type of teams, like the Celtics, like the Spurs. So I think the ceiling for Precious under a well-run team is high, and especially for a team that desperately needs, his type of talents. So I could see Precious thriving under the Celtics. I think he's being considered by them from what I read. And if they do get him, I'll be upset because the Celtics, I think, are going to get bet. I don't know. But I think it's going to be a good pick for them. And they're in my division, so I'm already upset about that. But I go Precious on this one. So
Nah, yeah, I don't blame you. I think you could go right either way. I think Cole solves one thing with the scoring, and I think Precious being a big, just a body there. And again,
it's the
I
most
think
important flaw.
yeah, I think yeah, that was their biggest flaw in that team last year. Just nothing when a guy would get inside, not even just a Bam, but when Butler would go inside, like it almost felt like he could have gotten whatever shot he wanted. I forget if it was game 1 or game 2 where he just had that wild and one over, I think it was Tatum. Like if you had like a natural shot blocking big, does Butler, like he might get the call, but does he get the shot to go in? Like
Yeah,
you need that.
yeah.
You need that. And I think with one thing we can consensusly agree on, if Precious goes to the Spurs or the Celtics or a team like that, his ceiling of what he'll be in his career will
Becomes
increase.
higher. Yep.
It becomes higher. If he goes to the wrong team, I'm kind of scared for him because like and this happens with so many guys, the wrong place for a prospect will doom their career. It'll doom them.
I know. I'm a Knicks fan, bro. I know this stuff. Yeah. Anything
I
else
was
you got to add to that?
I was referring to the Kings, by the way, when I said dooming a prospect. I didn't mean.
Kings, Knicks, bro. They're the same thing, bro. Legit same thing in terms of just eating ass with who they pick. But it's not the pick's fault. I mean, somewhat. But then it's also they got. Well, I'm not. No, it's it. It's it. Precious to the Celtics. I'm not gonna go on a rant.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's our lottery predictions. Half of these will probably be wrong. I
Yeah,
also think half of these will change because there's going to be trades. But
yeah,
overall, I'm confident in somewhat of them.
yeah. I think the thing is that maybe our specific players will be wrong, but I think we'll be right in terms of some of the mindsets. Like,
Yes.
I think I'm trying to think of one of these teams. I think like with the Spurs, like even if they don't pick Precious, like I'm saying, they could easily go with a guy that brings something different to their roster compared to some of these other players. With a New Orleans, like that'll completely depend on who's available left on the board. Like if somehow, what if Nesmith and Kyra Lewis Jr. are both off? What happens then? Like there's so much up in the air with this class because this class. I think if there's one word we could describe this class as, it's enigma. This is an enigma draft class. Like we just don't have a definitive answer on every single selection. And that begins with the first overall pick. I think in any draft class, if you don't have a definitive number one guy for sure, I think that sets the tone for that draft class. Because we're talking about Like Okongwu, he could go 3 to 9. Edwards could, he should go top 3, but what if he somehow slips out of the top 5 somehow? Like, this is a draft class where so much can happen, and I think we're going to see one of the more entertaining draft classes in a while, just because we everything's so up in the air. And this is without trades, by the way. Like, we didn't
Yeah.
we didn't talk about any trades in specific detail. I think like 3 or 4 of these draft picks could definitely get traded, but that's without trades of how crazy this class could become. Like, and now imagine if we add a few in there. Like, man, this is going to be one very entertaining draft class.
No, I'm excited, and like it's unpredictable, of course, but that's the most we could ask for a draft that's without quote unquote stars besides the top three. Like if it's not going to be star heavy, at least it's going to be a little unpredictable and fun for us to kind of guess who goes to who.
Yeah.
So look, I'm excited personally. That is the 2020 NBA draft predictions. Jurgen, thank you to the very few viewers or listeners listening. God bless, man. Until next time, later, everyone.